have spaces open up for those in need. We do see some residents continue to be on the streets. I drove through this morning and quickly looked around at what the situation was. While the area remains clear of tents both around the New Market Square area and Atkinson Street, there are some folks still out on the street. I know our outreach teams have continued to work with everyone and will continue to provide services and offer housing and shelter for people who are in need to get out of the cold. Every single day that goes by in winter is a life safety risk for people who are unhoused. And we will continue to connect people to the available beds and low threshold supportive housing as it becomes available as well. I want to make a couple notes on behalf of our Public Works team as well, since I don't believe they're the one cabinet that has not been represented here this morning. They were working all day incredibly hard, making sure that the area was cleared and kept safe for everyone. Starting today, our Public Works team will resume nightly sweeping along Atkinson Street and as needed street cleaning around the New Market Square triangle. Individuals will be removing any trash from the sidewalks on New Market and Atkinson that has been left behind, and we will power wash the sidewalks once the debris has been cleared. That is weather dependent though. The last thing we want is to be spraying water everywhere when it's below freezing, and then it will be a different type of hazard. So we'll watch the weather for that. We're working closely with the New Market Business Association and Sue Sullivan to support the cleaning of private properties as well, fencing and other materials. And we are also reviewing the condition of public assets to make repairs and fixes as needed on the sidewalks, on the streets, and looking to clear graffiti removal, and we'll be intensively around to support the local businesses in this area. This has been a remarkable coordinated team effort. I cannot overemphasize how many people worked incredibly hard throughout the day yesterday, but in all the days leading up to that transition point. By the time I arrived at New Market Square yesterday around 8:30 a.m., the majority of people who had been living in the encampments had already been connected to low threshold supportive housing, had already accessed transportation.
For the workforce development capitalization incentive grants. So those are all things that'll make a really, really big difference. And so we're looking forward to having a very productive legislative session. You know, when you're doing the budget like Jay Trumbull's doing, sometimes that can be very difficult. A lot of people were predicting with COVID that we were going to have terrible budget years, you know, for the next few years. And in fact, if you look at what's happened, we've probably never had stronger surpluses than we have now. Every month, they estimate the revenue coming into the state, and we're hundreds of millions, and we were 500 million more over estimate in December than what they were doing. And so if that continues for the rest of this fiscal year, that's another $2 to $2.5 billion, $3 billion potentially, depending on the thing, above even what we were thinking. And so this is actually going to be a situation where whatever we've put in our budget, you know, we're going to have more than enough to be able to accommodate. These guys I know have certain things. So look, I mean, you still got to make choices, but that's a much better situation to be in than 2 years ago, March, April, when people thought that, you know, this was just going to be, you know, really, really difficult financially. And it's just really strong underlying growth in Florida's economy. We still have the lowest per capita tax burden in the country, but you just have so much activity that's doing that. And that is against a lot of the national trends that we see happening, where there's a lot of headwinds that are pushed down from Washington. We've been able to fight through that in a lot of respects. So I think it's going to be good. And I think that we will probably be able to come back and do more for Northwest Florida in the not too distant future. So we're going to have some folks come up. We're going to have the mayor, then Representative Trumbull, then Dane Eagle. So Mayor, you want to come on up?
Yes, sir. You know, it keeps me up at night, the fact that since the storm, most of the country forgot about Panama City, forgot about Hurricane Michael. This gentleman standing next to me, as well as Jay Trumbull, Secretary Eagle, the rest of the people standing behind me, they never forgot. The governor's been here. He came here a couple of days after the storm. He's been with us shoulder to shoulder ever since, and he's here today. He doesn't bring rhetoric, he brings cash. That's what we need to rebuild. We appreciate all the efforts with all the things that you've got to deal with on a federal level, trying to keep this state open. We have never fallen off your radar. We won't forget it. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mayor Budnick, said it correct. Governor, you were here before you were elected. You've been here multiple times, and you've not forgotten. And for that, we say thank you. The governor gave his State of the State speech a couple of days ago, and he mentioned freedom a bunch of times. You know, you can't rebuild a community in a day, a year, a couple of years. It takes a long time. We would be so far behind the 8 ball if Florida was not a bastion for freedom. If we didn't have the ability to get out and get to work, because the governor allowed us that opportunity in Northwest Florida to get back, get to work, get our kids in school, to rebuild, create some significant normalcy. And I think without that, Governor, we would not be where we are today. And it is a drastic change from where we are from a couple of years ago to now. And I do give you a tremendous amount of credit for that. Look forward to working with you this upcoming session. Look forward to making sure that you don't come back empty-handed when you come back over to the Panhandle. But very much appreciate you and your leadership, and thank you for obviously this money today. This money represents about $62 million that the governor has single-handedly brought to the city of Panama City, not including the other tens of millions of dollars that have gone to other communities affected by Hurricane Michael. So thank you for standing with us, and thank you for making sure that our community is not forgotten in Tallahassee. So appreciate it.
Great. All right, Dane Eagle.
Well, it's good to be back in Panama City. I'm Dane Eagle. I get to help carry the check. And it was not too long ago we were here announcing $19 million for the Hometown Revitalization Fund for the streetscape out here. Today we're bringing $20 million for infrastructure. As Jay Trumbull just said, that's over $60 million just from DEO's Office of Long-Term Resiliency alone. And that's not including, and that's the Panama City, not including all the money the governor's been able to secure through Division of Emergency Management and others. We are committed to the Panhandle. We're committed to Panama City. We'll be back time and time again to make sure that we're fully recovered and resilient for future storms. Thank you.
One of the things we're going to be working on in this legislative session is my proposal to do $1 billion in gas tax relief for Floridians. And the reason is simple. You see inflation like we have not seen for decades in this country. And that is an absolute killer for family budgets. You have, and granted, Florida's got a lot of good stuff going on, but even, someone could get a 5% pay increase and they could still fall behind if you have inflation that's going the way it is. And they have borrowed and printed trillions and trillions of dollars out of Washington, and the bill is now coming due. And they actually want to be, if Biden had his way, they would do trillions more, even in the teeth of the worst inflation we've seen in 40 years. And so they need to reverse course because the inflation hits everybody. The inflation makes it more difficult. We actually, in my budget for this year, I had to go back and fund projects that we had already fully funded because the cost is going up so much with all that. So it affects people across the board, and you got to get that inflation under control, and spending, even trying to ram through even trillions more, that is wrong. That is not something that's going to end up working. And just think about what they did when they came in and did the massive quote stimulus in the spring, last spring with Biden. Trillions, like all this money, but then where does the money go? They don't even have enough therapeutics. They cut therapeutics to Florida. Everybody knows this is something that we needed for a long time, and yet now they're shorthanded because you have all this $1 trillion and all this other stuff, and you can't put more to actually help people and treat people. So it's been totally mismanaged. That money being printed is absolutely fueling this inflation, and that is a major, major headwind that we're having to deal with. Now, we don't control the money supply. Obviously, we don't control what the Congress does, but with the gas prices going up, if we can say the state, take away some of that tax, $1 billion worth, that's going to help people, particularly people that got to commute a lot, because it does add up. And what are you going to do? You're just not going to go to work? I mean, you can't necessarily make those decisions the way people that may live in other areas or have different luxuries. So this inflation, they said it wasn't something that was real. I've been talking about it for a long time. Clearly, this is real, and this is a big, big problem. The other issue that I think is going to continue to be a problem if it doesn't get straightened out is these federal vaccine mandates. The Supreme Court still has not ruled on the stay for these mandates. And so in Florida, what we said was nobody should be denied earning a living based on these jabs. That's your choice. It's a private choice. It is not something the government should be forcing. And just think about what we're seeing now. Before Biden, the most cases in a day, I think, was like 265,000 cases nationwide. Now they have like 800 and 900,000 a day. And so clearly the vax has not stopped people from being infected with Omicron. That is just clear as day. And so what is the basis of forcing somebody else to do that? They had said it would end COVID. If you had Fauci said if 50% were vaccinated, you'd have no more surges. That's what he said, in the spring. That was wrong. Okay, so there's no basis to be mandating this. What you're going to end up seeing now, we provided protections in Florida. People, they want to try to mandate. No, you can opt for all these exemptions. You can opt for different things so you can keep your job, and that's something that's very important. But this OSHA mandate clearly exceeds the ability of Congress under the law or Constitution. And so for the Supreme Court not to have ruled on this, it's a little bit concerning, because this is not a very different, if you believe that like the founding fathers believed, that the Constitution is one of limited and enumerated powers, you cannot authorize the federal government acting with basically as like a state police power. They're saying they're regulating business to impose a vaccine mandate because they know they couldn't impose the vaccine mandate directly. So this is an attempt to end run around the constitutional structure. So we need the Supreme Court to come through and rule properly on that. And it's not just the OSHA mandate. And you will have problems in other states that didn't provide protections like Florida did. You're going to have truck drivers. You're going to have a lot of people who are going to end up being out of work. In our economy, with everything that's going on with the supply chain and all that, you couldn't ask for a worse time. The medical mandate, this is what they're trying to do is absolutely insane. There are places now in Florida, we provided protections. So nurses were rehired, all these people, many of them have natural immunity. And so but there's a crunch on the staffing because you have obviously a lot more COVID nationwide, and then you have staff that get out sick with it. So what have they done? In other states, they have fired nurses for not having vax, even though most of them have natural immunity. So they fire them. But now they're shorthanded, so what are they doing? They are bringing back on the job vaccinated nurses who are currently COVID positive. So if you're unvaccinated, naturally immune, and uninfected, they fire you. But if you're COVID positive and vaxxed, which we know most of the people that are COVID positive now are vaxxed, they are going back on the job. And it just shows you that CMS mandate is absolutely insane, especially given the ineffectiveness of these shots to actually stop transmission between individuals. And so I'm hoping that they will get real on this. I am surprised. I mean, I think the arguments went fine, but to not have ruled by now. So what happened was they didn't do an administrative stay. So technically, this OSHA rule is now in effect. And so you've actually had Florida businesses that have sent out notices. And I just want to be clear to everybody, our law is in effect that protects people. So there, you have to honor religious exemptions. You have to honor all those things. So nothing changes with our law. And OSHA says you have to test people who haven't been vaxxed. But our law says if you're testing, that's at the business's expense. That is not at the employee's expense. So that's Florida law. We're going to make sure that that is enforced, and we're going to make sure we're providing protections for people so that they don't have their livelihoods ruined by an unconstitutional and really ham-handed federal mandate. We were expecting a decision from the Supreme Court this morning. It did not come, and so who knows when that's going to end up happening. But clearly we can see in front of our eyes the ineffectiveness of what Biden's trying to do, because you see unprecedented amount of people getting this Omicron, and of course most of them have been vaccinated. So it's not stopping the spread like they claimed, and there's no basis to be able to deny someone their personal choice or their job based on it. So let's get this, hopefully the Supreme Court gets it right, because we really need to move forward, and we've got to stop using this as a weapon to wield against other people who are making choices that they think are right for them. So we are disappointed today that we didn't get that decision, and hopefully we'll get a decision very, very soon. Okay, happy to take some questions. All right, we'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.